On your Thursday episode of Locked On Raptors, have you ever wondered what it might be like to be Nick Nurse trying to figure out lineup combinations when he's got 10 or 11 guys who are all the same shape and size and play the same position? Well, we're going to figure out exactly what it's like to be Nick Nurse, putting together these weirdo lineups the Raptors have. On today's show, as we play Lineup Roulette with Freddie Rivas of the Confederacy of Dunks podcast. I'm not going to explain the concept anymore. You'll just have to wait to find out what Lineup Roulette's all about coming up in just 1 second on today's Locked On Raptors. Thanks for hanging.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to episode number 1259 of Locked On Raptors for Thursday, October the 13th. I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I have been covering the Toronto Raptors for going on 9 seasons on various platforms. So you can follow me on Twitter at WoodleySean. You can subscribe, follow, rate, and review the podcast for free wherever you get your podcast. The show Twitter handle is at Locked On Raptors as well. We are also on YouTube for free. You can go hit the big red subscribe button. It's impossible to miss and support the show that way. It's much appreciated when you do that, as it is appreciated when you make us your first listen each and every day. All right, on today's show, we've done a few episodes in the last year or so where I have brought out my trusty bedazzled hat to play some sort of stupid shoehorned in game. And we're doing that again today, as we are going to play a game called Lineup Roulette, and I'll explain what it's all about in just 1 second. But first, we got to bring in our guest from the wonderful Confederacy of Dunks podcast, part of the Raptors Republic family of podcasts, my sworn adversaries up and down. It is Freddie Rivas. Freddie, how's it going, pal?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, buddy.
It's great to have the greatest mailbag question asker in the history of Locked On Raptors on the podcast. Yes, I said it there. Apologies to Epic Moppus. Apologies to our pal B-Ball Thinking. Also very good question askers. But Freddie, you always come with the heat. So thank you. It's lovely to have you on the show today. Let's explain the concept of lineup roulette. Essentially, this is based on the idea that Nick Nurse could more or less do his job by pulling names out of a hat and throwing them on the floor in groups of 5 and just hoping things work out. It's kind of the deal when most of the players on the team play the same position, have overlapping skills, are the same size, yada, yada, yada. You know the Vision 6'9" deal by now. And so I figured, why don't we try a little game on today's show? I have, again, my bedazzled mustache hat that I was gifted after I got engaged by a dear friend of mine. And inside I have the names of the top 11 players as I perceive them. 10 now, because one just fell out. The top 11 players in the Raptors rotation this season. I'm just going to dip my hand in, pull out 5 names at a time, and we're going to talk about whether or not it's a lineup that would work. We're going to sort of tie in a reference to RuPaul's Drag Race as well. If you're familiar with the game Toot or Boot, essentially, people will walk down the runway and you'll be able to say toot or boot as to whether or not their outfit is good or not. Toot is good, boot is bad. And so we're going to toot or boot a bunch of lineup roulette, pulled out lineups for the Raptors. It's a very confusing, convoluted show, but we're excited and happy, and it's going to be great. Okay? It's good. It's a good concept here. There's nothing wrong with it. No notes whatsoever. All right. Are you ready, Freddie, to play lineup roulette / toot or boot?
Yes. If you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love anybody else, you know?
Amen to that. All right. Let's dive in. Let's pull out 5 names, and I will read them off, and then we'll determine whether it's a good lineup. I will also be checking in to see if the lineup played at all last season, and we'll go from there. All right. First lineup I've pulled out of the hat. We've got OG Anunoby. We've got Precious Achiuwa. We've got Fred VanVleet. We've got Dalano Banton. And we've got Gary Trent Jr. So basically, the starters, no Pascal, no Scotty. It's sort of an in-between lineup. Maybe you see this in the second quarter. I don't know. Banton, VanVleet, Anunoby, Precious, Gary Trent Jr. About as shooting forward as you could get when it comes to these lineups, with Trent, VanVleet, OG, and in theory, Precious on the floor. You have Precious playing center, I guess. I mean, OG might swap in there at times. Banton, Trent, VanVleet, Anunoby, Achiuwa. Is this a lineup that you would like to see the Raptors play this season as an in-between lineup, Freddie? Toot or boot to this one?
I'm gonna toot this one pretty hard. This is a really, really fun lineup. Not one I've thought of, I guess, because I don't know. We have so few nominal guards on the team, but Banton seems to be a one-man fast break.
Hmm.
So I feel like he would work himself. Like I guess maybe he's guarding small forwards. Fred can play off ball. Yeah, a lot of shooters on this lineup. Even if Precious is not the shooter that we think he could be.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, Fred, OG, and Gary. That is a good shooting lineup for the Raptors. That is basically the best shooting lineup for the Raptors. Not including Otto.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm also giving this lineup a toot as well. I think it is a bit of a throwback to like Raptors lineups of the past. Of course, Dalano
Yes.
Banton is not short Fred VanVleet as the second point guard next to Kyle Lowry. He's of course a 6'9" point guard, but you do get sort of a smaller skewing lineup here,
Mm-hmm.
akin very frankly to, like the Norm Kyle Fred trio that we saw as sort of the 1, 2, 3 back in, say, 2020, the bubble season. Like, again, it's not exactly perfect. Banton maybe is more of like a DeLon Wright corollary here. So
Yeah.
maybe you think back to like the 2016-17, 2017
Mm-hmm.
18 seasons where Wright's kind of fitting in next to Fred or Kyle in certain spots. But yeah, this lineup seems like it's got some legs to me. I don't know, like, especially if Precious is shooting and you can space with Fred-OG, Trent, and Precious. Maybe you get OG as sort of your primary screener here. He's probably the best screener on the floor. That's the
Yep.
thing that is, I think, if you're looking at the limited resources on the floor, screening and just like big man play it's probably the thing you're looking at as not being particularly prominent in this 5-man group. But I think OG is pretty good, if not like the best screener on the team already. You space Precious out to the corner. You put Fred and Trent kind of around, have them buzzing around like the little jitterbugs they can be. Banton working downhill. I think this could be a pretty fun little in-between lineup. You get Scotty and Pascal some rest. Why not give this lineup free reign over the middle part of the second quarter every single night? I say we're off to a roaring start here. We're
Yeah.
1 for 1 on tooting these lineups. We're going to put the 5 names back in. We're going to pull up lineup number 2, Freddie. Unless you have any final thoughts on that group as I go and sort through the next 5.
Just yeah, that's probably, if you sub OG out for Scotty or Pascal, probably the fastest lineup we could put out there. Like that's
It
probably
probably is.
the
Yeah.
speed lineup. I guess Boucher, deserves some love there for speed.
Yeah, Boucher is a quick fellow. All right, let's go. I'm not going to pull out Precious again because that makes things too. Sorry, am I gaming the system just a little bit? Maybe, but I didn't. These look. Just deal with it. This is a weird segment, weird concept. Be kind to me if I'm trying to maybe tailor things to be entertaining. All right, the next 5 guys I pulled out of the hat. We've got Pascal Siakam. We've got Thad Young. We've got Dalano Banton. We've got Gary Trent Jr. And we've got Scotty Barnes. Thad, Pascal, Banton, Trent, and Barnes. You tell me who the point guard or center or whomever in this lineup is, because I sure can't tell you. What do you think of the Banton, Siakam, Barnes, Trent, Thad look? Is this a toot or a boot for this lineup here, Freddie?
I am gonna go boot. This is the no shooting allowed lineup. Um, I am all in on the Raptors 6'9" experiment, but we're gonna see some stretches of a season where the Raptors go like 2 for 30 from 3, and
Yep.
like this, that is how we will end up there. Yeah, I guess you would guard Trent from 3. Maybe you would guard Pascal a little bit from 3 from the
Pascal
corners.
has to be in the corner in this lineup, I would say. Like he
Yes.
is your best outlet there, without a doubt.
And to your question, I think he's the point guard. I find myself these days in a little bit of the minority in terms of point Scotty. I think that I love seeing Scotty in transition, making passes, and I don't want to put a cap on what he can do, but I'm not really. I don't think we should focus on developing Scotty as a point guard. I think we should focus on developing him as a basketball player. just as a future player, as Masai said.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Like with Barnes, it is very easy to be like, oh, put him in this silo, and he'll be a power forward, he'll be a point guard, or in some cases a center. Why not all of them? I say, like, just have
let
him
him do
try
everything.
a bunch of stuff. He seems like he's pretty good at all of it and learns how to do things pretty quickly. So yeah, I think I'm with you there. This lineup, I think, would have some legs if you took Banton out for somebody. Just like I think Trent-Barnes-Siakam-Thad's a pretty interesting trio or quartet. You get the screening, the playmaking of Thad. You obviously get Pascal can be on or off the ball. I think Scotty, you want to have him get some reps with the ball in his hands for sure. This could be a place where that happens. I just think that's tricky if Dalano Banton is like having guys sag off of him by 19 feet to stop any Barnes drives. Trent obviously is like a salve for any lineup to kind of make things work a little bit smoother, but seems a little light on shooting. By the way, neither of the first two lineups we have seen so far played any minutes together last season. I just want to see here if there's maybe a way to filter for how these guys played last year. Yeah, so we did see a little bit of the four-man group of Trent, Siakam, Barnes, and Thad play together.
Okay.
They had their moments across 123 possessions over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like 8 different lineups. They were a plus 7.4 point differential, over per 100 possessions, over 123 possessions per cleaning the glass. So that's a super tiny sample size, and there's not really a whole lot to sort of go on there. But the most often used lineup here, 55 possessions, was Precious in place of Banton. And that was a plus 3.6 over 55 possessions. So not terrible by any means. Defense was pretty solid. But, it's light on spacing for a team that is probably going to need a little bit more in terms of guys just standing far apart so they can kind of open up driving lanes for Pascal and the rest. Any last thoughts on lineup number 2, as I think have both unanimously agreed that we're booting this one?
I think I'm going to call this the O-Reeb lineup.
No Precious or Boucher.
That's fair.
Add to the O-Reebness of it, but what
that's
a weird
true.
word.
I do feel like I don't know what the analytics say, but eye test. I feel like Thad and Barnes and Banton are very pro O-Reeb, but yeah, I guess you have to put Boucher and like the Bash brothers. Do they have a nickname? I don't know.
To your point, if you swapped Precious in for Banton in this lineup last season, the one I just mentioned, the 55 possessions they played, 98 percentile in offensive rebound percentage, 36.7 on court offensive rebound percentage, higher than their season long number 2 in the league average. So maybe you're not far off with your assertion that this would be the O-Reeb lineup. We're going to continue on here and run through a few more lineups that might be good or bad as we pull them out of the hat and play a little Nick Nurse cosplay. We'll get to that in just 1 second here. But first, want to tell you about our dear friends over at betonline.net. They are your number one source for football betting info this season. You can find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles, injury reports, whatever it is on both college and pro football. And it's all there at your fingertips to give you all the information you might need to be the informed wagerer. I know when I usually get into sports betting, which is very rarely, it's usually when I go to a game, I kind of bet when I'm at the game to enhance the live experience. Probably should have done that when I went to the Blue Jays game 2, lost to the Mariners, and bet on the Mariners to win to make myself feel less sad. But either way, I usually go in totally unawares, and I'm just indiscriminately pressing buttons. I need to be smarter about it and go to betonline.net first so I can get all the information to make the proper bets so I'm not losing money when I'm going to sporting events and enhancing my experience with a little light, small stakes sports betting. The fastest and easiest way to check out all your favorite games and events is BetOnline. You can also, check out the MLB playoffs. You got MMA, boxing, golf, every sport under the sun, and you can go and use either your mobile device or just head on your desktop to betonline.net. Go there right now. BetOnline is where the game starts. And we continue on here with your first listen of the day, Freddie Rivas, along to play lineup roulette as we run through, pull some 5-man groupings out of a hat, and determine whether that's a lineup worth using or not for this year's Toronto Raptors team. All right, let's go. Lineup number 3. I've got 3 names on the table. Let's pull out 2 more, and here we go. We have got ourselves Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes, Fred VanVleet. Good start. We like this. Dalano Banton keeps getting pulled out, and Thad young. So you got the three mainstays, Fred, Siakam. Actually, I'm going to throw Banton and Thad back in. We've had a lot of Banton and Thad so far. We're going to pull two more names out. We got Khem Birch, OG Anunoby. Okay, this is an interesting one. We've got Fred, Barnes, Siakam, OG, Khem Birch, which I believe was a starting lineup for this team in spots last season when Gary Trent Jr. was unavailable. I'm going to check that as you talk. But Siakam, Fred, Barnes, VanVleet, OG, and Khem. Is this a lineup you would like to see, Freddie? I know Khem's been on the outs for a lot of folks, but he's a center. He can set screens. He's looked pretty spry in the preseason. Where are you at with this lineup?
Yeah, pretty spry in the preseason is kind of where I'm at. You know, we were talking a little bit before the pod. Try not to overvalue preseason here, but I like Khem. I think he has value on this team, not just as like a trade asset in the future either. I feel like you know, he does things that other people don't. I feel like, you were talking about OG being the best screen setter. Khem's got to be close. And he can, he's not like a major lob threat, but he can roll. I looked before the pod. He attempted 14 threes last year and hit none of them. But I think he can hit the odd three. I feel like in a lineup like that, he's obviously the fifth guy, and I'm just talking about Khem, but there's value in someone sort of integrating themselves in subtle ways. And Thad recently in after a practice, sort of talked about not needing to get buckets and there being a value in that, and a guy that just knows where to be on defense. I said all offseason, this team really, or all season, sorry. I felt like the thing we needed the most is vets, and Khem being injured for so much of the season wasn't ideal. So I like this lineup. It's a big toot for me.
I am also going to go with a toot, with the caveat that it was very bad last season. In 92 possessions per cleaning the glass, this lineup was a minus 9.2 per 100 possessions.
God.
So not awesome. On offense, they were in the 7th percentile. So 93% of all other lineups were better than this one.
Yikes,
3.3 offensive rating. Defensive rating was 112.5, 51st percentile. So not great there. They were pretty decent on the offensive glass, but not great in their limited run. But that said, Khem Birch was a shell of himself last season, and I am willing to give a little bit of leeway to him. And, look, this is a lineup where if you are of the mind that the Raptors should be trying to have a center on the floor, and you are of the mind that Precious-Achiuwa should be starting games in place of Gary Trent Jr., which I am of the mind of, I think that would be awesome. We should see that. But there might be certain matchups where Precious-Achiuwa, not that there are many matchups where Precious-Achiuwa is overmatched defensively because he's a monster, but maybe you come across a Joel Embiid and you don't want to have Precious-Achiuwa pick up 2 fouls in the first 4 minutes, and you want to throw just a typical big man out there to try to absorb some fouls, maybe play some solid post defense. This feels like a lineup to try to do that with, and I'm willing to see it a little bit just to see if last year was an issue with Khem being busted and not really able to provide the center type skills that they would typically need in this group. But like Precious doesn't do those things, right? Precious is not a good screener. Precious is not a really good roller. Khem has his moments. He's got the float shot. That's good. He's got, obviously he's a very good screener. If, in theory, maybe he can, space out for the odd three, although it's never really happened in his career outside of the preseason and the back end of the fake season in Tampa. So I don't know how to reckon with that. But if you're looking for center-like skills to help accentuate Fred-OG-Siakam and Barnes, your 4 best players, Khem might be a guy who can kind of grease the wheels of that group. I'm going with a soft toot, even though the numbers last season were utterly wretched, Freddie. So bad. I also just want to see here, the 4 best players on the team, obviously, are Fred-OG-Siakam and Barnes. Last season, across 967 possessions together, which doesn't feel like a lot, really at all. They were a plus 2.3 points per 100 possessions, so not amazing. Not what you want to see from your core group of guys. I think just as far as bellwether numbers go, the numbers of that foursome with whomever they're playing with are gonna have to be better than what they were last year. What's your level of optimism that we could see those numbers uptick with that 4-man group? Obviously, Trent will be mixed in there, Precious will be mixed in there, other guys will be mixed in there, but those are the 4 main guys.
Yeah, I'm pretty high on that group. I feel like Fred and Pascal, I don't think had a huge amount of healthy games together.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, there's a certain amount of injuries you should expect. I think at this point, forget about the OG's going to make a jump thing. It's becoming like a joke, but
just accept that he's freaking awesome as it is. Exactly. He's really good at basketball. Yeah.
Yeah. And exactly. And he's going to be better. Like he just is going to be better or not worse. And I think, I find myself not being as like sky high on Barnes year 2 than a lot of people, but I still feel like Barnes, I expect him to improve the most on defense. I think that he's going to make way better reads than he did in his first year, and that is going to, result in winning basketball. So whether you put Trent in there, Precious in there, Thad in there, Otto in there, even Chris, I do expect that lineup to be better. That said, I feel like the strength of this Raptors team is not the starting lineup. The strength is our overall depth.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I think their strength in their starting lineup, I think, is more so apparent late in games when teams are selling out to stop specific actions, and it's like, oh wow, there are 5 guys who can torch us here. Damn.
Yes. Well,
but it can lead to a little trouble early on in games as you try to figure out, like, all right, whose turn is it, type of thing. Yeah, it's worth noting as well that the lineup with those 4 guys, plus over the course of the season, they were, as a 4-man trio, in the 89th percentile defensively, 107.2 defensive rating, so pretty good there. The offense, not so awesome, as it is typically the case with most Raptors lineups. But let's go one more quick one here before we get to the final segment. 5 more guys. We got Precious Achiuwa. We've got Pascal Siakam. We've got Fred VanVleet. We've got Chris Boucher. And we've got Scotty Barnes. All right. So, come on. This is maybe Nick Nurse's job is really easy. Just pull the same guys out all the time. Yeah.
Is this negative foreshadowing for Otto's health? Because I feel like Otto.
See, I'm trying to find Otto. He's in here somewhere.
Showed up in a lineup, and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, you know what? I'm just making an executive decision here. I'm pulling Otto's name out. I might have dropped Otto on the floor. I think that's what maybe happened here. Otto Porter Jr. on the table. So
my greatest fear, is that like I'm so high on the Otto acquisition, and it's like, oh no, is this one of the seasons where he plays 30 games?
Yeah. So the lineup we've got is Otto Porter Jr. We've got Chris Boucher, Precious Achiuwa, Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet. This one, talk to me. I might. This is like a toot and a half. This is like a double toot. I don't know where are you at? Not OG. Otto, Fred, Chris, Precious, Pascal Siakam.
I love it. Big toot. This is. I'm extremely high on the Raptors in the regular season, and Otto is a massive reason. The corner threes, again, going back to Thad Young talking the other day, Otto's defensive reads is also going to be a big part of this team's floor being so high, in my opinion. And just having a guy that is willing to shoot, like Chris last year had a down year from 3. Precious, we're not sure about. Scotty's obviously not there yet. Pascal sort of is a specific 3-point shooter. So in my opinion, it kind of leaves like OG as a good shooter, but really Fred and Trent as the type of guys who can shoot threes and relocate. So just from a spacing perspective, I love this lineup. You're happy with it on defense, offense. There's a lot of flow to it. There's explosiveness. I think lineups like this are really going to mess with other teams. We're this Raptors team is going to be fine, man. We're going to be a total. So you're a baseball guy. What's the weird pitch?
There's
Screwball.
the screwball. There's the forkball. There's the ephus. Yeah, there's all sorts of wild stuff.
The R.A. Dickey, like what?
Yeah, the knuckleball. Yeah,
knuckleball. That's what I'm trying. Yeah, I think the Raptors are going to be like an in-season knuckleball. People are going to play us, and they're going to be like, "Oh, well, we didn't watch enough tape on whatever the hell this is," and we're going to upset them and win a lot of games, I think.
So interesting thing to note on the data on 4 of the guys in this lineup from last year. Obviously, no Otto Porter Jr., so this lineup has not played together before. But Fred-Siakam-Boucher-Achiuwa as a 4-man group, 314 possessions played, only a plus 1.5 net rating. Their defense actually not very good, 114.8 points allowed per 100. But the offense, 116.2 offensive rating for that 4-man group. You throw in Otto Porter in place of, I guess in this situation, the guy you're replacing is OG in the most commonly used 5th guy in these lineups. Trent obviously worked in these as well. Both of those were effective lineups. You throw Otto into this group. Yeah, this should be a really good lineup, man. Like this lineup should whip. There's the space. You get the offensive crashing of Boucher and Achiuwa on the glass. You've got ways by which you can get Siakam off the ball in the corner. Maybe this is where you flex a little bit of, hey, can Precious run the little things with the ball in his hands? Like obviously his reads got to get a lot better to really master that side of the game. But yeah, this lineup is an absolute toot for me. Really, really something I want to see. And we'll get into it in just a second here, but I just am really excited to just drop Otto Porter into a whole bunch of the Raptors pet lineups just to see what he does to make things work a little bit better. We're going to continue on, run through a couple more lineups out of the hat as we finish up lineup roulette / toot or boot coming up in just one sec. But first, a reminder, go check out Locked On Leafs each and every day as Mike DiStefano and Dave Morisuti are running through the goings-on with the local hockey team. Not so good on opening night against the Montreal Canadiens, and there's a real chance there's a season of tumult ahead of us in Toronto, and Mike and Dave will do a great job breaking it all down, so go check them out, Locked On Leafs, every day for free on your favorite podcast apps and on YouTube. All right, Freddie, let's throw the names back in the hat. We'll pull out 5 more, and we'll go from there. Again, I think Otto fell out. I might just have Otto as a standing guy that we use for one of these because
I love it.
He's fun. Okay. Let's start with this before I pull out a lineup. Like the idea of Fred, Otto, Trent, and OG together as 4 guys. Fill in the blanks as to who the 5th guy is. I don't really care. But that 4-man group is as shooty as they're going to get. Let's just say, all right, lineup number 5, I'm not pulling it out of the hat. We're just going to talk about this because I think it's interesting. Fred, OG, Trent, Otto, Pascal Siakam. What say you to that lineup? Is that a lineup you might start in certain situations? Like, that feels to me like a lineup that could close games. Obviously, you like Scotty Barnes quite a bit, and you don't want to not have Scotty Barnes closing games. But if it's an off night for Scotty, if there's an injury, whatever it might be, I don't know. That Fred, Otto, Trent, OG, Siakam group feels like a way to a whole buttload of points for the Raptors. Do you agree?
Yeah, big time. You know, it's a shooting league, and I know the Raptors are sort of zigging when everyone is zagging, but this lineup is fantastic. Maybe there's some size issues with Trent and Fred being the guards and not having like a center out there. But at this point, I'm pretty into Pascal and OG doing spot center minutes and sharing. I've gotten over being super scarred by the Tampa season, and I think at the end of the day, that was training. Like, I feel like it was sort of the beginning of Vision 6-9. If you just
Stanley Johnson was the right size. Didn't have any of the requisite skills, but was the right size.
Yeah, you just need to forget that we ever had Alex Len and go from there.
There's a pull. Oh my God.
Yeah. But like, I love this lineup. I think there's with all this starter talk, which I know Nick Nurse loves to answer starter-based questions.
Yes, he thinks it's cool. He thinks the concept of starting five is really important and meaningful.
Yes, yeah. Oh God, anytime someone starts a question with the starters, I can just I'm like, oh man, who's gonna get it? But
Shout out to our brave soul Samson Folk, who I believe asked that question recently. Yeah,
yeah, you gotta it is important, but
the normies want to know who's starting. Okay,
we want to know.
We're communicating from the team to the normies. That's what it's all about. Like, we're not doing this because we want to piss Nick Nurse off. It's just what the people want, baby.
Also, sure, closing games is the most important thing, but guess what? You can't really replace those 4, 5, 6 minutes off the top. Those matter, but yeah, this lineup can shoot the hell out of the ball. I think maybe would have some issues defensively, but I'm all in. And yeah, I was going to say, I don't think there's enough talk about Otto starting. I think we'll see how fast he integrates to the lineup, but it's not nothing that he started for the finals of a championship winning team last year,
Yeah.
So sure it's circumstantial, but I think he just gives his team so much of what it needs that it's a big toot on this lineup as well.
I haven't really thought about the idea of Porter being like the stealth candidate in the who should be the fifth starter conversation, because I've just assumed it's Precious and Trent, and that's
me
it.
too.
But like, that is intriguing to me, because like, you get Porter in there, he's a little bit more of a sound, I would say, positionally capable defender, as opposed to Trent, who's obviously trying to cause a ruckus, and he's going to force turnovers, but also get out of position a whole lot. You probably have a little bit less of the sort of, turn the ball over and get running down the other team's throat situation if you got Porter in there in place of Trent, because the event creation is so valuable from him. But it's a little bit more of a sound, sturdy defensive lineup. It's longer. It's bigger.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. I think we're going to see many iterations, I would say, of starting and closing looks for this team this season. And some people might get mad. You get benched for the fourth quarter of a game for whatever reason. That's just, hey, one of them good problems. Oh, no, we have too many useful players who can play in big situations. Whatever are we going to do? I do like the idea, if they go with the typical small ball starting five, and you want to get to this lineup early, just take Scotty out at the 5-minute mark, roll with this lineup for a few minutes, see what you can do, and then you can work in your in-between lineups and have Scotty kind of be the guy who runs those. If you're trying to make point Scotty happen, maybe that's a way to get to that, and also get this lineup, which I think, maybe I'll put this down right now. You heard it here first. Assuming it plays, I think to qualify on Cleaning the Glass as like an actual lineup, it has to play 100 possessions. I will assume that this lineup plays 100 possessions. I will say that this lineup is going to be the best offensive lineup for the Raptors this season, and I don't know how close it will be. Fred-Trent-OG-Porter-Siakam, roll it out, baby. Toot, toot, toot all the way like a damn train conductor. I think it would be a fantastic group. Freddie, you want to go one last lineup here? We're going to actually just pull it from the hat here. I'm not going to tailor anything. We're just going to get weird and see what we get. Y'all good?
Let's do it. I'll just say on that last lineup, try to double Pascal on that lineup.
Yeah, have fun.
And see what you get there. Because
I also think
you double him and there's a 3 in your face.
Yeah, I also think like OG is the screener in that situation. Seems pretty fun too. Boy, oh boy. I want to see that lineup real bad now. All right, final lineup. This one could get weird. We have ourselves Thad Young, Khem Birch, Pascal Siakam, Dalano Banton, Otto Porter Jr. Weird hodgepodge of dudes on this one. I guess Banton's the point guard. We'll go Otto as the 2 guard. We got Siakam as your 3. Thad and Khem in the front court. Toot or boot this one. Our final lineup. Have we ended like a lion or a lamb here, Freddie? What do you got?
I think I'm not like a hard Australian boot. I'm a soft boot on this one.
Yeah, like you're hitting the reset button as opposed to restart.
Yes,
with the boot. Yeah.
It's I don't know. Like I think so much of the focus for me has been on shooting, but I'll just leave that point aside. I think this lineup just doesn't really have enough. Maybe Thad is such a glue guy that he can make anything work. But this is getting into pretty funky territory for me.
Which means we're sure to see it.
Yeah, that's actually, you know what? Sub out Pascal for Koloko, and we'll see this lineup. Like we'll see some weird shit this year for sure. But like, yeah, I Thad, Banton, and Khem are all sort of in that like end of the bench, playing 6 or 7 minutes a game potentially. So to see them all in one lineup, I wonder what's going on,
Yeah, Banton, Siakam, Thad, and Birch played 0 minutes together last season. Birch was hurt down the stretch of the season. Banton didn't play very much in the back part of the season after Thad got there. There's some things you can squint and be like, oh, they could run some like dribble handoff stuff to get Banton going downhill around a Thad handoff. You put Pascal with the ball in his hands, he's going to find Otto Porter Jr. at some point for an open three. He's the only guy on the floor who I want taking an open three, because all these other guys ain't going to garner any sort of defensive attention. It might be hard to get Porter those looks as teams funnel things towards Birch or Thad or Banton. If you swapped in like Precious for Birch, I could be compelled to buy this lineup. There's just enough shooting there at that point. But I think this one's a little too lean. It is a boot for me to close this one out. So I think we went 4-2 on Toot versus boot, which is not terrible. But yeah, I think this exercise did what I wanted it to do, which is just to say, prove that there's going to be a lot of weird looks that the Raptors roll out this season, and be prepared for some funk, because that's what Nick Nurse likes to do, and that's what this roster is going to, I think, demand, is that like sometimes you're just going to throw stuff at the wall. It's not always going to work, but like we're going to see very bizarre combinations of players this season, and I frankly relish it. I think it's going to be fun, even in the moments where it leads to 6-minute stretches where they score 1 bucket.
Yeah, I think Nick is going full Toronto Jazz Festival this year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the thing that excites me the most as someone who's watched Nick is I don't really see, like a viable argument that he has guys that he doesn't trust. There really should be at least 10 guys on this team that he trusts every night. So I'm really excited to see how that plays into his creativity, and especially in terms of making sure guys like Pascal and Fred don't play too many minutes.
For sure. Man, it would be really nice if they could play 34 minutes a game this season and not lose all of the games. Just have the Fred-Trent-OG-Porter-Siakam lineup out there, and they'll blow everyone off the floor for their 6 minutes a night. And then every other minute's gravy. It doesn't matter. They're going to win those minutes by 1,000, and then the rest of the game will be the other team playing catch up. God, I want to see that group so badly now. Holy.
Give us some blowouts. I think that would help.
That would be cool too.
A lot.
Very much so. Freddie, thank you so much for popping on the podcast, man. It was great to have you on. Anything you would like to promote for the good people out there?
Just check out my podcast on Raptors Republic. We're at Dunks Podcast on Twitter.
What a great score on Twitter for you guys to get that handle. My goodness.
I don't really know how that happened.
Have the No Dunks people reached out to you trying to buy the handle off of you, or are they settled with their handle?
They have not reached out yet. I feel like if they do reach out, I might just have to give it to them out of respect.
Fair enough. Yeah. Shout out to Lee Ellis, by the way. Farewell to Lee. We love Lee Ellis. Well, what a guy.
Yeah, that's. They're such an inspiration. They're amazing. And also just plug me and Catherine Nikers, a friend of your pod as well. Our WNBA pod, the Pickup WNBA pod on all socials. Yes. Check it out. It is a very friendly podcast for anyone wanting to get into the WNBA.
That is fantastic. Go check it out. Freddie and Catherine are fantastic. And all the people at Raptors Republic, they're fine. No, we love them all. We're going to wrap it there. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can keep an eye out tomorrow morning. I will have a new post of it. Post Touches, my new Substack. So keep an eye out there. It'll be right in your inbox. So just go subscribe. It's in my pinned tweet on Twitter. We'll be back again for another episode tomorrow, as well as Tony East from Locked On Pacers and Pat the Designer from Locked On Bulls are going to join me. We're going to do an Eastern Conference fantasy draft, with the winner being the team after 5 rounds who has selected the group of teams with the most combined wins at the end of the season. So that's going to be fun. Keep an eye out for that tomorrow. Next week, we've got the Over-Under Spectacular with Vivek and Sahal, my favorite episode each and every year. That'll probably be a 2-parter Monday and Tuesday. And then all of a sudden is game day. The start of the season's Wednesday. It's ridiculous. I'm very, very excited. And you can follow us all through the season and all that. And thank you for doing so. Support the show wherever you get your pods, all that good stuff. Go listen to Locked On Leafs as your second listen of the day as they're breaking down last night's loss to the Habs. And we'll talk to you again on Friday with another episode of Locked On Raptors. Bye-bye.